This week we'll begin looking at a new shape. We'll be looking at finding the area of a trapezoid. We'll be doing that the first part of this week. So just what exactly is a trapezoid? A few things you need to pay attention to is that it has four sides, which is why you see in parentheses it is a quadrilateral. So it's in the same category as squares, rectangles, parallelograms, but it is just a little bit different, but it is still a quadrilateral. One of the most important things is it has only one pair of parallel lines. This is important to understand. And so the question that needs to be asked is, what exactly is a parallel line? And just a quick review, a parallel line are two lines that will run forever. They will run forever and they'll never touch each other. So these two red lines will never touch. So when you see these in the shape, that is what you want to be looking for. If I see these two lines, if they were to continue, eventually they're going to cross into each other. Those are not parallel lines. So we are looking for two lines that will go on forever, that will never touch each other. So they can be like those two, like the equal sign. They could also be two lines standing up. But that is what we'll be looking for. The reasons why these are important, these are the two lines that will tell you what exactly are the bases. And if you notice, bases is plural. So when we work with the trapezoid, you're going to be finding two numbers to take the place of the base. So here's what we know when it comes to making the formula. You had the video, and that video was to help give a basic understanding of this. Your formula will have two bases. It will have a height, and because it's half the shape of a rectangle, if we were to copy it like it showed in the video, we would only use half of it for the shape. So that means we are going to divide by 2. So my formula can be found where you have your two bases. So you have base 1 plus base 2. Those numbers at the end are not numbers you're going to add. That's not 1 plus 2. That's telling you you have two different numbers to make the bases. So it's base 1 plus base 2. The way that this is usually written, it's going to be parentheses base 1 plus base 2. One question that always comes up is which number is base 1, which number is base 2? That does not matter because your order of operations inside the parentheses, the order doesn't matter for addition. So just choose one of the parallel lines to be base 1, choose the other to be base 2. And then we're going to multiply it by the height. And so anytime a letter touches parentheses, that means multiplication. So I'm going to put my H right here. And then in the division, we're going to divide by 2 because that shows you it's 1/2. So it can be written that way. Sometimes people will write the height times the parentheses of base 1 plus base 2. We're going to divide that by 2 to show that it's half of the shape. Either one of these is fine. They give you the same answer. So if you notice, you're going to have 3 numbers to look for in these shapes. 2 for the base and 1 for the height. So how is this similar to a triangle? Your triangle is base times height divided by 2. So it's almost the exact same formula. The only difference is you're going to have 2 base numbers to add first, and once you add those, it's going to make your total base, and then multiply it by the height and divide with 2. Okay, so let's look at a few examples. We'll start with some that are a little bit easier, fewer numbers to choose from. Okay, so if I'm looking for my bases, I need to look for parallel lines. If I look at this line right here, if I was to continue to draw it out, it would come this way. This line, if I was to continue to draw it out, you see that it crosses. Because it crosses, that means those cannot be the base. Those are not parallel. And so if I look at this line right here, it's going forever in this direction. This line is going forever in this direction. Those are your parallel lines. So to start my problem, I'll put the formula again, just get used to it. You have base 1 plus base 2. That's in parentheses, and we're going to multiply it by the height, divide it by 2. So I see that the 9 and 5 are my bases. The order doesn't matter because it's in parentheses and you're going to add it. So I'm going to do 9 plus 5. Now to find the height, nothing has changed with any of these shapes. The height, as you remember, is always attached to the base. It's always where a 90-degree angle is located. So you're looking for that square, that's right here. You see that we have the base, and so this line here is going to be your height. So in this problem, it's going to be multiplied by 6, and we're going to divide by 2. So now you're back to working just a normal order of operations problem. You have 9 plus 5 is 14. 14 times 6 divided by 2. And if you remember from the other day, you can choose how you want to do this. If you want to do 14 times 6 and then divide that by 2, that's perfectly fine. 14 times 6, 24, that's 84. Then if I was to divide that by 2, it goes in 42 times. So your answer is 42 meters squared. However, let's try to keep this as easy as possible. Another way we could have done this, and what we should always be looking to do first, if you can simplify, divide first, and then when you multiply, your numbers will be smaller. So 14 over 2 is 14 divided by 2, that equals 7. So now my problem becomes 7 times 6, that equals 42 meters squared. That's a lot easier to work with instead of multiplying the bigger numbers and then divide. So if you can always simplify first, please do so. If you think you got it, I would encourage you to pause the video and then try this one on your own just to see how well you did. I'll put the formula for you again up top as a review, but you should be looking at these formulas every single time just to get more habit of getting familiar with it. But you got your base 1 plus base 2. We're going to multiply that by the height, and then it's half the shape, so we're going to divide it by 2. Okay, so I'm looking for those parallel lines to find my bases. Those parallel lines you can see are these two lines. They'll never touch. So this problem is 3 plus 6. The height is always found at the 90-degree angle. We know that the 6 is the base, so we need this number on the inside. That is going to be 8. And we're going to divide this by 2. 3 plus 6, that is 9. Then we have 9 times the 8. We need to divide it by 2. So if you want to do 9 times 8 is 72 and divide 72 by 2, that's perfectly fine. However, I would encourage you to simplify it. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then I'm going to keep the 9. 9 times 4, that's 36 meters squared. There's my answer for this one. Okay, this problem's a little harder. You see that you now have 5 numbers to work with, but remember you're only using 3 of these numbers. You're using 2 numbers for the base, 1 for the height, and your bases are the parallel lines. So it's important to be able to identify that. I see this line here, and this line here will go on forever without touching each other. And another way to think of it is the height, that 90-degree angle, is always going to connect the 2 bases. So if you look right here, you see that this line here is connecting these 2 parallel lines. And so that is also going to give you a hint to that. So this problem is going to be, your 2 bases are 6 plus 15. That needs to be in parentheses. We see the 90-degree angle is connected at the 4, so we're going to multiply by 4. And then we need to divide by 2 in the problem. So your order of operations, 6 plus 15, that is going to equal 21. So we have 21 times 4 divided by 2. If you want to do 21 times 4, that gives you 84. Then you just divide 84 by 2. However, I'm going to try to keep the number small and easier to work with. 4 divided by 2 is going to be 2. So this problem becomes 21 times 2, which equals 42 meters squared. That's your answer for this one. You will see some problems that have decimals. That's okay. You should know how to add decimals or even multiply decimals if needed. So the first step needs to be to fill out your formula. And so I see my 90-degree angle, so that tells me this line is going to connect my 2 bases. These are the 2 bases. And so you have 12.2 plus 17.8. The height is going to be times 8. And then the problem we need to divide by 2. I'd encourage you to pause the video, work that out yourself, see what you get, and then check your work with that. Okay, so when I go to add this, you have 12.2 plus 17.8. Once again, when you add decimals, you need to have the decimal points in a straight line. 2 plus 8 is 10. 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 7 is 10 again. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So that equals 30. So now we don't need that 0 at the very end because it's behind the decimal. So this problem becomes 30. 30 times 8. Let me erase that. Be 30 times 8 divided by 2. So you can multiply 30 times 8 and get 240. Divide that by 2. However, I recommend switching these two because you can multiply 30 has a 0 on the end. That's easier to work with. So if I do 8 divided by 2, that gives me 4. When I multiply this, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 3 is 12. So the answer to this problem is 120 feet squared. We'll do one more just to make sure that you got it. I pause the video if you get this one right, and I think you're good to go. The assignment is ready for you. I do recommend you wait for the Zoom call, but if you want to at least try it and then we can check our work during the Zoom call, that's fine. I would wait to turn it in until we do that Zoom call, just so that we can make sure any questions you have are answered. Okay, so I see my height right here in the middle. It's connecting the 2 bases. The 2 bases are parallel lines. So I have 9.3 plus 2.7, that needs to be in parentheses. The height's the inside, that distance, starting with the 90-degree angle, that is 3.5. I'm going to divide this one by 2. Okay, so I go to add this. 9.3, 2.7. That equals 12.0, so I'm just going to leave it at the 12. I'm still multiplying by the 3.5. Shouldn't be looking like a comma. Let's try that again. 3.5. That's the best I got there. We're going to divide this by 2. So you can multiply. We can multiply by 12 times 3.5, but I would recommend, once again, getting smaller numbers to keep it easier. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So this is going to be 6 times 3.5. So I multiply that out, you get your answer, so 3.5. Put the 6 on the bottom because it's a single digit, so that means last place values to work with. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. I have one number behind the decimal, so I have 1 in my answer. So my answer to this problem is 21 meters squared. So hopefully you got that. Hopefully you at least see which numbers go into the formula. Make sure you do your adding first and then simplify if possible. As always, if you have any questions, please email me. I'm here to help you. And hopefully I see you on the Zoom call.